There's breaking news coming in from North Korea right now about the country's nuclear program. I quickly want to go to our chief national security correspondent, Jim Sciutto. He's working for the story here. But first, I want to go to CNN's Will Ripley. He's joining us on the phone from Hong Kong. Will, tell our viewers what you're learning, what you're hearing.
Wolf, I just got off the phone with a North Korean official who confirms news that is breaking right now in North Korean state media. Kim Jong-un has announced to his country and his own people that he has completed his nuclear program, and therefore there is no need to continue developing nuclear weapons. Kim Jong-un saying North Korea no longer needs any nuclear tests, mid-range and intercontinental ballistic missile tests, and he's saying that the nuclear test site in the northern area near the Chinese border at Punggye-ri has completed its mission, therefore will likely be closed. This is an extraordinarily significant development and, frankly, a huge win for President Trump going into these discussions, this potential summit with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. I want to read for you a quote from a North Korean source that I just spoke with on the phone minutes ago. He told me, quote, "Finally, Kim Jong-un has decided to open up. This is a new chapter for the DPRK. He has committed himself to the path of denuclearization and will now focus solely on economic growth and improving the national economy. Finally, he's realized the best path forward is to open up the country and normalize relations. He is finally being recognized by the international community, and this is an historic, timely opportunity." Wolf, I have to say, I am really almost speechless here at the pace at which North Korea has done this U-turn. And this all started with Donald Trump agreeing to sit down for a summit with Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un has gone from being cast aside as the ruler of a global pariah to now he has a meeting next week with the president of South Korea. Xi Jinping reportedly making plans to visit him in Pyongyang, something that the Chinese president would have never considered before. You have Russia and Japan reaching out, trying to schedule their own summits with Kim Jong-un. And the U.S. and North Korea is still working, we believe, to finalize a date and location for this historic sit-down with President Trump. I've been speaking with diplomatic sources over the last week who were optimistic, believing that President Trump might be the one U.S. president who can figure out a way to break through to North Korea. And this announcement from North Korean state media does confirm a dramatic shift in North Korean policy, a commitment, apparently, to engage ahead of these historic talks. It is really extraordinary development.
It truly is, Will Ripley. I know you've been to North Korea several times over these past few years. If, in fact, the North Korean regime lives up to this would be extremely, extremely significant. It also follows that meeting a couple of weeks ago that the outgoing CIA director, Mike Pompeo, had with Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang. Talk a little bit about that, because potentially that meeting could have also set the stage for these historic statements made on the part of the North Korean regime.
That's right, and from what we heard, sources familiar with those discussions in Pyongyang said that it was a very cordial meeting, that Mike Pompeo got along well with Kim Jong-un, who came into the room and was very well prepared. He sat at the table. He had a number of pages of notes in front of him. They got along. They discussed, again, the main sticking point being the location for the meeting. We don't know what other details they discussed. We know that there are still 3 Americans being detained, being held prisoner in North Korea right now. We don't know if perhaps a deal is being worked out for their release to coincide with this summit. Now, as we look at history here, think about the agreed framework that was agreed upon in 1994, or the leap day deal back in 2012. There have been instances in the past where the United States and North Korea have come to an agreement to dismantle the nuclear program, and as we know, those agreements have fallen apart. So any deal that is made obviously needs to be verified. There needs to be inspections. North Korea needs to agree to dismantle its nuclear facilities and to allow international inspectors into the country. And frankly, we don't know if North Korea is hiding nuclear weapons and the material to make nuclear weapons in areas across the country. We don't know the size of North Korea's arsenal. So while this is significant, and the fact that Kim Jong-un is telling his people this is highly significant, the key here in any deal that's worked out with the United States is going to be verification. The world needs to be able to know that North Korea is not secretly developing nuclear weapons while at the same time engaging and opening up. But we've never heard this kind of language from the North Korean leader before. And what you're seeing now is this is the strategy on the part of the North Korean government to now sell this new idea to the North Korean people, because they live in a city. I've been to Pyongyang many times, and you're surrounded by propaganda celebrating the nuclear program. There are images of missiles striking the United States. The nuclear program has given Kim Jong-un, in a sense, legitimacy in the eyes of his own people. But now he's telling his people that the nuclear program has completed and that things are going to change. And this has never happened before. Is the change really going to happen? Well, now there's so much more riding on this summit, this meeting between President Trump. What can the United States offer North Korea now that North Korea is saying they're willing to make these dramatic concessions, stopping missile testing and shutting down potentially the nuclear test site at Punggye-ri?
Very, very significant, potentially historic statements coming from North Korea right now, including a statement attributed to Kim Jong-un himself from the North Korean news agency. Kim Jong-un saying that and I'm quoting now, under the proven condition of complete nuclear weapons, we no longer need any nuclear tests, mid-range and intercontinental ballistic rocket tests, and that the nuclear test site in northern area has also completed its mission. That statement from Kim Jong-un, according to KCNA news agency, the state-run news agency. Jim Sciutto, you've been watching North Korea for a long time. Will, I'm going to get back to you in a moment, but this potentially very significant. Now, actions speak louder than words, but these are very positive statements from Kim Jong-un coming on the eve of his summit with the South Korean president, President Moon, and potentially with the president of the United States.
Let's remember where we were just a few months ago. In August of 2017, the president famously warned of fire and fury against North Korea. You had an increase in frequency of missile tests and, frankly, an increase in success by North Korean missile tests. Great concern here and open talk from the American president of a military strike on North Korea. In that short time since then, you now have this statement from North Korea, missile and nuclear tests stopped in advance of this summit. You have this summit coming up, at least plans within the next month or so. And you have North Korea putting denuclearization on the table. I mean, a remarkable step. Again, as you say, it's all going to be in action rather than words. But just to have that on the negotiating table, an enormous step, and frankly, an unexpected step if we were talking about this just a few weeks ago, let alone a few months ago. And when I speak to both Democrats and Republicans on the Hill who follow this issue, they will express, first of all, they will note the marked progress on the issue, and they will express some cautious optimism that we are certainly in a better place, the U.S. and North Korea in a better place. And that is enormous, unexpected progress. Now, some caveats here. One, why can North Korea suspend nuclear and missile tests? In that statement, the North Korean leader is saying that North Korea has completed its nuclear program, and in effect saying we no longer need to test, that we've established a level of expertise and success here that doesn't require tests anymore. Some of that, of course, meant for the domestic population. Another issue, too, is just as you look going forward, you have a big summit coming up. Victor Cha, who was until recently President Trump's choice to be the ambassador to South Korea, who would have been, of course, very involved in these negotiations, he has, while also citing the progress, said that a danger for summits like these is the danger of inflated expectations, right? You go there now with enormous expectations about what each side is going to give each other and what you're going to walk away with. That said, this is not a place we expected to be even a few weeks ago. It's remarkable progress.
It is very significant indeed. We've been showing, Brian Todd is with us. He's been covering North Korea for a long time as well. The images we've been seeing, the ballistic missile test, the last major ballistic missile test was last November. It's been several months that the North Koreans have been silent, at least in this area of testing.
That is significant, Wolf, and as everybody's been mentioning, it is extraordinary that Kim Jong-un tonight is even talking about this. But let's put some of this in perspective. Look at the graphic we're showing, the missile tests, the missile launches by each leader, comparatively between him, his father, and grandfather. His grandfather launched 15 missile tests. His father launched 16. Look at how many Kim Jong-un has launched, 89. Extremely aggressive in just a little over 6 years in power. Jim and Will are mentioning caveats here. One really important caveat to mention, when Kim Jong-un says denuclearization, every analyst you talk to says it means something different to him than it means to the United States. To the United States, it means him getting rid of his nuclear weapons. To him, it means the U.S. and its allies ending their nuclear umbrella of protection in Asia, and also the U.S. possibly withdrawing troops from South Korea. It means something completely different to him than it does to the United States. So when everybody should just keep in mind, when Kim says denuclearization, it means something else. Another very important thing to remember here, again, Jim and Will talking about verification, that's really the proof here. Kim Jong-un, well, actually North Korea, under his father and grandfather, they have basically cheated on every agreement they've ever made with the United States since 1994. Everybody has to remember that tonight, even in light of this extraordinary announcement.
Important statements, actions, though, as I say, speak louder than words. We'll see if they're followed up with specific actions. Indeed, we'll see what happens at the summit in the coming days with the South Korean leader, and followed presumably by the summit with President Trump as well, and Kim Jong-un. Will Ripley is in the region. He's in Hong Kong. He's monitoring these developments. I understand, Will, you're getting more information.
Hey, that's right. And in fact, just yesterday here, we learned, according to South Korea's President Moon Jae-in, that North Korea no longer expects American troops to withdraw from the Korean Peninsula. So that was something that we learned yesterday. That's another dramatic shift from North Korea's longstanding position that Brian was talking about, that in order for denuclearization to happen, that American troops would need to leave the peninsula. That is no longer a North Korean requirement, according to South Korea's president. The American nuclear umbrella, though, continues to be an issue, perhaps, for North Korea, because the nuclear umbrella protects South Korea and Japan, and that is one reason that North Korea has used to justify its own nuclear development. So that may be a request from the North Koreans moving forward. We'll have to see what President Trump is willing to give here. Another point that diplomatic sources have told me is that the price here is going to go up considerably from what was agreed upon back in 1994. Back then, North Korea's nuclear program was in its infancy, and still at that time, the government was asking for significant compensation in exchange for dismantling the nuclear facility. Will North Korea expect a significant financial compensation this time around? Obviously, what President Trump can offer, if North Korea follows through with this, is relief from sanctions, the normalization of relations with the United States, which could open up potential trade opportunities. If this all comes together, this could change North Korea as we know it. This is a country that, there's a handful of flights in and out of Pyongyang every week. When I walk through that airport, it's a shiny new airport built to accommodate lots of planes, and there's just one flight in and one flight out. It's nearly empty. We could see that. We could see that change. You could see more international influence in North Korea, and that could fundamentally change the country. Economic growth. Look what has happened in China, a country that was once isolated and now is a booming economic powerhouse. And we know that the North Korean leaders, in fact, Kim Jong-un just recently visited Beijing. I'm sure he went to that capital city. He saw the skyscrapers and realized the economic opportunities and, frankly, the political opportunities for him, now being recognized by the international community if he were to change his country, to open up his country and allow for the kind of economic growth that we've seen in China. A lot of people thought that might never be possible in North Korea, but there are elements in that country who have been hoping for quite some time to see better economic living conditions for the people there. And this is a country where in the rural areas it's extraordinarily impoverished. There's very little infrastructure. But that's also a tremendous opportunity potentially for people to go in there and start to build and develop. We could be seeing, this could be the dawn of a new era in North Korea, and the once isolated, closed-off country that I'm familiar with could change, and frankly, it could change very quickly depending on how things go.